now for Movie Spotlight, your weekly ticket to the world of film, from the hottest blockbusters to hidden indie gems and everything in between. And joining us today in the studio are our resident movie critics. We have Darcy Paquet. Hello, Darcy.
Hello.
And Jason Bechervaise. Welcome, Jason.
Hello, Alana.
Now, Jason, we're starting with your pick this week.
Yes.
It is Yoon Ga-eun's The World of Love that premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival in September. It was released last week.
Yeah, that's right. So we're getting to it a little bit late, but it's already sold 45,000 tickets, which, you know, for an independent film is very, very good. The word of mouth this film has been receiving has been really, really strong, and you know, it's one of the best. It is the best Korean film I've seen so far this year, so we have to talk about it. And so the movie in Korean is called 세계의 주인, and the English title, The World of Love, and it's by Yoon Ga-eun, you know, a supremely talented filmmaker. I mean, Bong Joon-ho listed her in I think it was a Sight and Sound feature, you know, as one of the great upcoming filmmakers to look out for. And she's made films focused on children, you know, the short film Sprout, The World of Us, her feature debut, and The House of Us. And, you know, this movie I have to be really careful about what I say in terms of the plot, because I don't want to give too much away. But and actually, if you look at, I was looking at information about the film before it came out, there was just very little about the story, and I can see why. But yeah, I mean, essentially it focuses on a high school student played by Seo Soo-bin. Initially, you know, she comes across as a very cheerful and energetic animated character. And what I liked about this film is it doesn't really have, you know, an inciting incident in the first few minutes like you would do with a conventional film. Instead, you know, the film is very naturalistic. And so that, you know, the director brings us in, you know, just because it just looks so, you know, natural, and the leading performance is so fantastic. But yeah, as the narrative unfolds, we learn about her and her family. So she has a younger brother who's also very, very adorable, and her mother, played by Jang In, who's actually in the World of Us, and there's a Bong Joon-ho connection there because that's where Bong Joon-ho saw her and then cast her in Parasite. So she's struggling with alcohol addiction, and something though is, you know, this has happened that's left a lasting scar on this family, but yeah, how we learn about that is somewhat unusual. I'm not going to say any more about the story, but yeah, not many big films in the movie. Although Go Min-si is an exception, she's by far, you know, one of the most famous in there, but she plays more of a supporting role as part of a volunteer group and friend of the main character. At its first screening in Toronto, where it screened in the platform section, so that was competition section, also played in Warsaw, London, and I can see it playing at many festivals in the weeks and months ahead.
I'm not going to push you any more on the plot itself, but I take it the director is centering the plot on children, young people, and this is something that's central to, I don't know if it's all or a lot of her films.
Oh, it definitely is. So, you know, I screen Sprout to my students, and it's, you know, it's a beautiful short, and, you know, that movie features Kim Soo-an, and the Korean title for that is Kongnam. So she's basically going around trying to find bean sprouts. It's just a beautiful film. The films are very Korean, you know, and they focus on children. So that focused on a very young girl, and then again in The World of Us and The House of Us, and here you know, the characters are older, but yeah, very much, you know, exploring the difficulties that they're facing. But she has such a, I don't know, compassionate heart that she brings a lot of love into the movie. So despite, you know, the fact that it does delve into some really serious and harrowing and traumatic themes, at the same time, there's just something there. There's a light there, despite all that, and that's what I, you know, one of the reasons I love her films so much. And she's able to get these incredible performances from a very young cast. So she, you know, these films are told from the perspective of young people as well. It's not like it's not about children, but from the perspective of adults. It's from the perspective of children. So she's able to work with these very young casts. and get these performances. And it's not just the performances; it's the camera work, it's the mise en scène. It just feels so natural, and alluring. And so I think and there's so much depth to her films, so even I mean, in some sense they come across as quite simple, and yet they're really not at all.
Mm-hmm. And going back to casting for a quick second, do you think the lead, Saw Soo-bin, could be one of this year's, major discoveries? Do you see her picking up awards for this, or maybe emerging as a significant new talent to watch?
Absolutely, she's going to win a lot of these, new actress awards. I'm 150% certain. Yeah, because this film, all the people in the industry are raving about it, and she's just a major discovery. She's going to be a big star going ahead. I saw from the credits she's already got an agency, management company attached to her. So she'll win some more. She'll win awards, and she'll go on to great things. I'm sure if she's listening. Yeah, I'm very excited about
so
future.
Jason, you're putting your money on her as an actress. What about the film itself? It's sold 45,000 tickets already. As you said, it's great for an independent film. How much further do you think it could go?
I think it'll play for several weeks, because that's what we've seen, with films so far. No Other Choice still playing in theaters by Park Chan-wook. This will screen for a long time, and it will sell. I would say several 100,000 tickets. Mm-hmm. That's my prediction.
Wow. Okay. Darcy, you translated this film. What was it like working on such a project? I mean, you must be thrilled with the reactions getting not only here in the studio today, but also outside in the box office.
No, it's true. I mean, I got to see the film early, and then I wasn't allowed to talk about it. And so I've been looking forward to the time when, the film got its premiere. And then it's been really interesting kind of watching social media, because everybody who sees this film kind of really wants to talk about it. And yet at the same time, everybody recognizes that it's a film that you don't want to know too much about before you go in to see it. And so I've been seeing long, very passionate responses to the film, all very non-specific in terms of what's actually in the film, but just saying, go see it. It's this is not a film like other films. It's something that's really special and important for the film industry. And so, I mean, just kind of being a little bit a part of that's been really exciting. And I'm really happy for the filmmaker as well, because, I've liked all her previous films. And I came into this film with high expectations, but it jumped above those high expectations. Mm-hmm. And it is really a great film.
Well, congratulations again, Darcy. It sounds like an incredibly rewarding project to have been a part of, and clearly our audiences, and Jason is responding to it in a big way. Now, shifting gears a bit, Darcy, your recommendation this week feels perfectly timed for today, Halloween. Director Guillermo del Toro, who won an Oscar a few years back for The Shape of Water, has returned with a new adaptation of Mary Shelley's famous novel Frankenstein. What can you tell us?
So the director, Guillermo del Toro, he's one of the most interesting directors working in Hollywood these days. He's originally from Mexico. He's made a career focusing particularly on kind of Gothic stories and fairy tales and monsters. And, he's done really impressive works, both in Spanish and in English, including like Pan's Labyrinth, which I think is his masterpiece, Pinocchio, Crimson Peak, Hellboy, Nightmare Alley. And he's produced a lot of films as well. So he's almost kind of an industry in himself. He says that this is his dream project, that he's been wanting to make this film since he was quite young. And so this is the year when he was finally kind of able to, put his vision into this story. It premiered at the Venice Film Festival. It was really well received there. It also screened at the Busan Film Festival, and the director came to Busan. I heard a story where after the screening, he stayed for like 2 hours to give autographs to anybody who wanted it. The film, it's financed by Netflix, and so I think most people will probably end up watching it at home. But it is getting a limited release in Korean theaters right now, so people who want to see it on the big screen, they have until November 7th when it opens on Netflix.
And before we jump into the film itself, let's remind listeners a bit about the original novel published by a teenage Mary Shelley at the time, back in 1818.
I know it's something that introduced something really new in literature, I think. supernatural stories were common at the time, but, this is in some ways like a really early groundbreaking form of science fiction, where she took contemporary scientific knowledge and then blended it with the monster story in a way that was just incredibly original. And, the backstory behind the writing of it is quite interesting too, because, apparently Mary Shelley, her future husband, the poet Percy Shelley, and the poet Lord Byron were all on a trip to Switzerland, and it was raining and they were confined indoors. And so Byron suggested they have a contest to see who could write the best ghost story. And Mary Shelley won the contest with Frankenstein. Byron, incidentally, produced a fragment of a work that was later adapted by a different writer into the first Dracula novel. So on a rainy day in Switzerland, both Frankenstein and Dracula kind of were born.
And Frankenstein has been adapted for film and television, so many times, sometimes pretty loosely. How does this new version approach the story? Does it stay closely to Mary Shelley's novel, or does it take kind of a different direction?
It is an interesting question because, Frankenstein's it's established its own tradition that's a bit separate from the book, particularly like these classic 1930s films by James Whale, Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. Created the iconic images, like the lightning coming down and animating this monster. That's actually not in the novel, but everybody associates it with Frankenstein because of these films. And so, Del Toro, he's a big fan of these old films, but he also really likes the novel. And I think that one of the reasons he wanted to come back to the story was to bring a bit more of the novel back into it. And so he keeps a lot of the structure of the original novel, including the fact that the story is told from these three different perspectives, ending with the monster's perspective, so narrating kind of his own experiences. But there are other things that are different, like the film's set in 1857, which is quite a ways after the novel was written. He's freely kind of adapted a lot of the content, including adding this central female character played by Mia Goth to the story. But I think it's his portrayal of the monster that's probably the most interesting part of this.
Let's delve into that. How does he portray that monster?
Unsurprisingly for a Guillermo del Toro film, the monster is kind of the most sympathetic character. And, despite its strength, it's capable of great violence. And it's pretty much indestructible. You can shoot it, you can do great violence to this monster, but then it heals itself, and so it seems impervious to injury or death, and yet there is kind of this innocence and tenderness that's shown by the monster at the very beginning. It's been put into this world, it doesn't understand where it came from, it's trying to understand where it fits in the world and trying to find some connection with the world. And at the same time, these humans that it comes into contact with are horrified by it and want to kill it and to kind of push it away. And so slowly its anger begins to grow. And so that creates an interesting character.
And what about the film overall? Would you say it met your expectations?
It did mostly. I don't think it surprised me. Some of his films in the past, like Pan's Labyrinth in particular, or The Shape of Water, just felt like something completely new and original. And, this felt in some ways kind of like a classic rendition of the story and the text. The action sequences felt a bit conventional, but on the whole, I quite liked it. It puts you into this world, and it is really kind of well realized, and so I enjoyed my time watching it.
Jason, did you see it? What did you think?
I did, yeah, and I'm glad I watched it on the big screen. I don't think I would have enjoyed it so much watching it at home. The action sequences are conventional, but they're still pretty cinematic. It is very long, and my favorite chapter is definitely by far the last one. When we learn about the story from the monster's perspective, so that for me kind of ended the film on a really strong note. So it kind of, it definitely loses momentum halfway through. It opens well. And then I start looking at my watch. But by the last hour or so, I was pretty very much engaged. And this is Del Toro at his best. The problem is he's just not at his best throughout the whole thing. So the pacing is a bit off.
And that's all we have for this week's Movie Spotlight. Thank you as always, Darcy Paquet.
Thank you.
And Jason Bechervaise.
Thank you for having me.